Alright, let's try solving the same case, but this time just using purely Meshmachine. So I'm going to Shift A, bring in a cylinder, same cylinder as before. Let's apply our scale, and we're just going to bevel. And from here, instead of making it easy, let's make it not easy. You know, just extruding is just so easy because we have all of our flows going for us. Instead, we want something more Boxcutter related. And let's shift click Smart Apply to create a clone, and we'll just rotate it on the X 90 degrees, holding Control to snap it there. And so this is our first merge. So let's select both of these, union, apply, and let's sharpen in order to isolate this edge along the side. So of course, me being me, there's never an excuse to not protect your perimeters. But let's solve this other area that we've created using Meshmachine. So to make it really effortless, we are going to give this whole area some geometry. Vertimerge isn't on, so that means we have a chance. We're going to do a few corrections just to assist our boy Meshmachine. Mirror to the other side gesturally, and let's try alt clicking in Meshmachine. I don't even know if I have alt click enabled. It's fine, we'll just do it manually. And with Meshmachine, I find that if I don't have the real mesh, you know, normally we mirror it to the other side, but if we don't have it all in a circular selection, sometimes pressing Y and using Boolean cleanup can go awry. So I'm just looking at the greens eating the reds, and wow, we really ate some reds that time. Let's try that again. Maybe one back. This one, we'll just fix that one manually, meaning that this area will require a little bit of loopage in order to assist it along. Also, I forgot to have hotkeys enabled. Sorry about that. Truly hard mode when I don't have hotkeys displayed. My apologies. So let us continue. This area, hard decisions coming up. Always hard decisions coming up. Especially in this game of subdivision surface solving. You know, the decisions that I make tend to lean more towards surviving subdivision than it does towards having a absolutely perfect geometry, which just isn't my goal anymore. Now it's just to survive. So we have created this loop. It's really rough, but you know, don't judge it too hard. We can force disconnection, which allows this to be alleviated a bit, but having such an advanced loop terminate there is just not going to be good for anyone. So maybe something like that is a little more relaxative for the surface. So let us just continue to slide areas around, and maybe something like that will work. We can just take that to the other side, and we have just merged our first cylinder. Let's unmark everything, and let's take this moment to first slap a triangulate on it so we don't have to be haunted by what we don't get. And let's just put a few levels of subdivision on it, and we see that our first merge is pretty much a success. Every area that was nicked on the topology we could see resulted in a corner. So if we turn off subdivision in edit mode, we could see that there are some areas that we could have just solved better, and that would have resulted in a smoother transition. So anytime you make a mistake, subdivision is the cruelest auditor because it will show you exactly where you were lacking on your surface. And even though all of this is just pretty much destroyed, it doesn't matter, we can just recut it. So I'm just going to turn auto smooth back on to maybe 30, Alt PE to look at this in EVHQ, and we're only 4 minutes in and we've merged our first cylinder with the shape. Surviving subdivision as well, which isn't even required for Meshmachine. Meshmachine is capable of getting away with literal murder because of normal transfer, but that isn't one of the aspects that I focus on with it. So let's perform a union, visual geometry to mesh, and all of that beautiful work we just did has been undone. And really, we don't want this triangulate there. I was like, where did all these tries come from? So mark, first we set our boundaries that we want to protect. Let's also re-protect our main boundary. And so how are we going to deal with this merge? Well, I am going to just grow my selection, maybe like that, and let's try using Boolean cleanup, and oh my god, it closed. That's it for that. Let's open it again. Oh my god, and this is probably one of those situations where I have so many files open that it's just not going to save me. So here we are back to this area. I'm just going to save this file as toposolve Meshmachine. Normally if I get too many crashes in a video, I'll just cancel it because I don't want to ever show someone's tools in an unflattering light. It's just not good for the community and at large. You know, we start pointing out each other's mistakes. Where does it end? So let's just select these surfaces, and I'm going to just dissolve it to clean that up, and we'll just bring that back in later because I really want this very terrible situation to work out, but we don't want triangulate present. So I'm going to save it, and this is where we are now. This is our life, and this is what we have to solve. So by selecting everything and then shift tilde jumping the boundary, I can press Y and we can use Boolean cleanup again, and what's green and what's red is really interesting right now. I feel like some of the greens got into the reds, but we're just going to place an additional loop to protect this area. We're also going to protect this area. And we're still just not very far in this video, just 7 minutes. So, you know, compare this with the one I just did that was like 45 minutes of me showing the way that I love to do things like a crazy person. And compare that with me actually getting in here with Meshmachine. And I was thinking I should just record a quick video. I was like, how hard will that be? Well, with Meshmachine, it's actually not very hard at all. So let's just make our connections. Start making some hard decisions. This flow is placed here for us to capitalize on, so let's take advantage of that. And we will just merge that, solving this into a very simplified junction. Every time I see it, I'm like, wow, how simple. Sometimes the solution is very simple, the best solution. I don't know, I always wonder about it because I start getting really iterative with my loopage and how I'm trying to mitigate geometry, and that's a quad just waiting to happen. Like right here, how are we going to solve our way through this? And we probably could use a little bit of knife work. We could be using offset cut, but this is Subdivision Survival Meshmachine Edition, so using it too early would take away the fun. We want to continue being meticulous with our loops. I'm so into the perimeters only of a mesh now and preserving them that, yeah, I don't always use offset cut as much as I probably could and should and would be able to get away with, but it's because I just can't let a perimeter be sacrificed. And when I look at a piece of geometry and I see that I've completely sacrificed the perimeters, I'm like, I don't know. So we're just continuing on, just having a easy going conversation about topological purification. And so with this, we're going to slide this one here, allowing these two to merge. At last, Shift R, I guess not, Shift R, Shift R, now these two and J, and we've done a degree of simplification of this, but we did maintain the form of our cylinder for the most part. We could tighten this loop up so Subdivision doesn't just roll all over town whenever we unleash it. But just like that, we've created this flow. In fact, let's mirror it to the other side so that way things simplify again. And this is the flow that we want. And really, if there's any tip to take away, is that, you know, once you get the geometry in place, you can force any flow that you want on a piece of geometry. However, if you try to oversimplify it, it's definitely going to get very painful. So do keep an eye on your result afterwards. But like I always say, I'll show my subdivision modifier in object mode, but in edit mode, I need to just really see the truth of the mesh alone, so that way we can get to the nitty-gritty. So for solving this, we're going to need to make a very serious choice up ahead. But before that, let us just begin consolidating this area just a little bit more, taking us all the way to our goal, meaning that we can set up this goalpost, form a connection, form a really large connection. So we're just playing with solutions. You know, whenever I'm just jumping around and pressing J, I'm just looking at alternative solutions that could exist in attempts to mitigate pulls to areas that are less important. So with this area, we just force our flow. I'm clicking points according to the cylinder we intend to junction with, not the one that I'm actually cutting on, which might be confusing. And just like that, we've created this flow. So merge it last, dissolve this point. If we jump there, it's going to be not good. So hard decisions to be made. Cut, 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 cut. Creating a star there, kind of ugly. Creating a junction point there. Let's offset it, just so we can keep flowing quads all the way around on all of our junction points. If you have flowing quads going around your junction points, it just makes it a lot easier for the conversion to subdivision. Not saying it's required, but definitely makes your day a lot shorter. Keeps the sanity at the insanity at a minimum. It keeps the sanity at a minimum. This workflow keeps the sanity at a minimum, because it's insane to do this. But it is part of the mesh mastering process. Like, the better you get at this, the better you have absolute control over any mesh at this point, once you're able to basically do this to it. And the shapes will only be getting more complex from here, but I'm going to just take the easy way out. Maybe not that way out, but sometimes whenever I bevel, it adds normals to the mesh, which I find to be strange and unneeded. But we're just going to ignore that. Select this loop and that loop. Shift click mark. We can press B to perform a spacer. And same with this area. We're just going to grab all of our boundaries, but maybe in edge mode, because if we grab it in invert mode, it's just not going to work out for us. Shift click mark. Press B. We see that it only worked on part of our selection, so let's do it in components. Still wondering about that and why that occurs sometimes, but just roll with the punches. So just like that, we've now given this area reinforcement. Let's select everything involved with this top face. We'll use sharpen in order to just simplify it. We just press Control X or X to do a limited dissolve. And we see that there's some curious things happening in this particular area. there's a time where alt selecting an edge just was being weird. Who knows why that happens. And we'll press Control T, Alt J, because we already corrected our flow on an N-gon level, which means that on a triangulation to quad level, we're already made in the shade. So select everything, unmark, and now we basically merged 2 levels of cylinder. In fact, for the center, we're probably going to need to just redo this area. So I'm just going to Shift A, add a cylinder, scale, we'll bring it out and just perform a difference. There's some interesting shapes able to appear in here. For example, that shape is terrible. Let's solve it. Let's make that survive subdivision. Completely weird edge case that just came about, but you know what? Let's accept that random battle. And you might be wondering, hey, where's the Meshmachine at? You gotta use more Meshmachine, man. Like I said, I use it in very particular cases, but for the most part, I'm able to accomplish most of what I need just on the fly, and then it just comes up as needed. Like for example, this process. Let's try using offset. So offset's able to perform a slide on one direction. If we roll the wheel, we can actually slide it the other direction, where it kind of slides it out, which is also cool. Let's try that again. Alright, so we'll need to close that, mirror that to the other side. Actually, let's use Meshmachine. We'll use offset, but we want to roll it, so we push it on the A, basically allowing us to meet at this area. We can just merge these 2 points. Kind of figured that was the solution that was awaiting us on the other side. So now we have this flow that's going around, protecting the parameter that truly matters. So if we grab these 2 points and we press J, we now have the top part of the loop that will basically be protecting this area for the evening. And we can just continue. So using more Meshmachine, let's press Y and use offset. And I wonder if there's an option to actually use it both ways, but I'm just offsetting it and then getting it to fit this area so that way it can just be merged at last fluidly. And let's also press Y, offset again, roll the wheel in order to push this out. And we can Control R, add a loop, make that connection, which not only didn't make the connection, but didn't even try. So M last, looks like with the offset cut, you know, expect a little breakage, but with these things, anytime you're using a mesh operation, you probably want to be quite familiar with pressing Alt-C to get inside and look at your mesh just so you can examine what is going on. In fact, this piece is going to be a complete pain in the neck. So that means it'll be fun for you guys. Just watching me suffer. Watching me solve both sides, including the mirror side, which isn't ever necessary in these cases. So let us protect our perimeter and turn on Verti-Mergy, because it's about to get wild in here. This point isn't going to be needed. That point can be consolidated. Let's use knife and force our flow in this particular area. And there's definitely a lot going on there. So I'm going to press Alt-X. We'll hit this with a bisect mod, look at it, open, and get inside and see what we have to do. So we're going to need to press M, merge it last. This is one point. This area, merge it last. And so how are we going to solve this? I mean, this area is like the epitome of a tricky area. We could basically force a flow and then make that flow come back with us against this wheel. Any flow that we're taking like this is against this wheel, but it's for the better. Can't just leave this mesh sitting around looking unsatisfactory. There I am pressing bevel again, and every edge got marked with sharp for some reason. I don't know why Blender does that, but when it does, I just roll with the punches and just quickly fix it. Let's just press Ctrl-Shift-B to bevel. And the reason we did that is so that we can make that connection. We have so many connections that we have to solve. So let's bring this one over here. Press J. Form the connection. And one loop here. We'll turn this into a redirect. And you see that without auto smooth, these meshes just look terrible. And with with a normal on the mesh, it also just gets in your way. So just thinking about how I want to solve this. I mean, this area isn't like the most important, but let's see if we can do a little bit of sacrificing to see if we can just add to its solution, maybe improve it. Really sacrificing a little bit of curvature there, but it's worth it for us to be able to successfully make it all the way to the end with this. So we see that in this upper area, we only received a certain amount of loops to deal with this mesh in terms of. So quad, and we need just one more, and we don't have it. So that means that we will give this 2 tries, which will turn into quads, maybe. Form a connection, Alt-J, we see that there's an early termination happening that we should just bring all the way up. Another questionable area approaching. We could improve this solution for this area by just pressing K and maybe bringing a flow along it like so. That will require that we turn all of this area into tries, but we can turn it back into quads. Let's take this, re-slide it over, and we're almost there. Let's press Ctrl-T, Alt-J, ending that. And we see that we were able to create a try to end that. We could create a redirect as well that would give some additional tension to this area, making it resist subdivision a lot better. So let's enable subdivision. And I'm just looking at my mesh to make sure there's no issues happening with it. And what a strange shape. So we just press Ctrl-3 and we see that we didn't solve enough. You know, moments of victory, like I said, don't even try, because when you're doing it by hand, you're always going to miss an area. And this one also needs the same attention. Ctrl-T, Alt-J. And now we have basically went through and created a shape using Meshmachine just to help deal with some things while we attempted to refine some of the solutions with the corners. I'm sure if you go back and you look over some of these solve videos, you'll see that some of the solutions can get quite questionable, and that there's definitely better ways that you, the viewer, could improve upon these solutions than the ones that I'm even showcasing. In fact, looking at this back corner, this is going to haunt me for the rest of my days as far as whether or not this was truly the best result for us getting this shape in on the side. But just like that, we were able to quickly merge 3 cylinders, get in and topologically solve them, and even solve this even more intricate, slightly crazier area that was just primed to give us trouble. So we discussed ways that we could use Meshmachine with pulling and cleanup a bit to kind of clean up the result and get something suitable for subdivision. But what if we wanted to get something just quickly with using just raw Meshmachine. Let's press H, Shift A, add a cylinder, RX90, and let's press RY or SY to scale it. And for the back, because we've sullied our bevel, whenever we roll it, we get these harder edges. So let's just click and press F9, set our shape back to 0.5, which will get us something like this. And let's just click and make it sharp. And let's just Shift R, duplicate, bring up this cylinder, scale it down. Let's take both of these, union merge. Let's Control A, visual geometry to mesh, sharp mark our edges because of superstition. And we are just going to just work pure Meshmachine. Y, Boolean cleanup. Ooh, Meshmachine, you gotta stop doing that. I'm using 2.931 right now, so it's not a Blender 3.0 situation, but I am going to try to bring back up my autosave. Wrong autosave. And this is where we were. In fact, if we press Alt H, we have our original mesh back. I'm just going to Control S and save that. And while we lost a little bit of our progress, it's fine. Maybe I did something wrong. Is that the first thought of a user whenever they run into an issue? Maybe it was me. So now that we have this boundary selection of the edge, which I have Shift tilde mapped to select boundary loops, which I talk about all the time. We're just going to press Y and we're going to choose Boolean cleanup. And we're looking at our greens, which are what we're keeping. And we see that when we slide this in, we're sacrificing a lot of our continuity when it comes to the cylinder. So that's where shift clicking mark and pressing B comes in handy for just keeping that continuity. Also, I feel like there's a mesh inside of this mesh, or the normals are present. Let's also do the same thing here. We just want to mitigate where that damage occurs at. Maybe grab this, grab it all the way there, Shift tilde, select boundary, Y. Let's save it first, Y, Boolean cleanup. And we see that we've successfully made it through this particular iteration. So every cylinder that's successful, let's try another. Let's give it an easy one. Union, merge. We just grab this face on the end. And let's shift click mark in order to add a spacer. Because soldering the bevel is funny as a meme, but it's so annoying whenever you're working. For this area, let's help it. Ooh, that's not help. That's hurt. That's help. Let's see, does this area need quote unquote help? Yeah, it needs a little help. You know, these vertices that are just too drunk and almost made it home. You know, sometimes you gotta just let them make it. You know, don't give them a DWI. But we're going to choose the green as the most critical area to merge to, which, if we look at this area looks so compromised to me. Let's undo. Think about that again. Boolean cleanup, roll the wheel. This is with reds. Alright, so maybe the solutions that we're trying here aren't the most. I just see torsion happening. You know, I think I talked about that in a previous video about torsion in meshes, but when you see it, you don't want to see it. So I'm just going to hit that with sharpen. Let's Alt V and look at this without a wireframe, and this is where we are so far with just this quick cylinder demo. So I'm just going to Shift A, add in another cylinder. This time we are going to face it to view, just like before. And I know that with Meshmachine, I could demonstrate this whole workflow that we've been going through with the cylinder in a series of very brief keystrokes. And that's what we're trying to do here, just show how much faster it can truly be whenever you're going through this process. So some questionable areas. Also, we just destroyed our integrity edge when we pulled into it, but that's fine. As long as we don't have overlapping mesh happening on the inside, success. So I'm gonna save my file, because if crashing has taught me anything, is that we should save our file when we don't want to lose it. Why? Boolean cleanup. And which area are we solving to? Do we want to eat this mesh's lunch? The answer is no. We want to solve the geometry, but we don't want to compromise our integrity when it comes to these flat areas. So why? Boolean cleanup. I'm just rolling the wheel. Let's roll the wheel over. Let's take the reds instead of the greens. I just love flipping it. It's like Christmas every time I bring up Boolean cleanup in Meshmachine. Every time I look at it, I'm like, maybe the other Christmas. Maybe not that Christmas. And we see that we even have a flow going, which on this cylinder, with all the merging we did, to have a flow is something. In fact, this as a starting point for a topological reconstruction is pretty nice, because Subdivision will take care of everything that's sparse. So just to up the ante one more time, we are going to merge a cylinder to view, and this time we are going to stick it out in front. And I'm not going to solve this one. We are going to cut this video short, but now that this area is present, first thing we want to do is protect the cylinder's integrity, and then we can grow it, maybe grab our boundary loop. We could press Y, go to Boolean cleanup, and here's us eating a red Christmas. Here's us eating a green Christmas. And we don't have to even eat all the Christmas dinner that's being offered. Maybe just a few. Maybe just every other. But for this area, hard decisions, hard decisions, hard decisions. Truly the hardest decisions a father has to make for his mesh, you'll find yourself having to make in the process of trying to solve for subdivision conversion. In fact, I'm automatically jumping into the mindset of what I would be doing for this, which would be early terminations and then building a loop around what matters. But just like that, we were able to get in and actually clean up a large amount of the nonsense that it came about from us using a Boolean operation. I mean, Booleans are so bad, but when it comes to assembling the form, there's some forms that really, how would you even put it together using non-Boolean related workflows is the alternative I have to that. Let's just sharpen it, and this is what we're looking at so far. And this mesh on a quad standard to convert it to subdivision and survive isn't the best, but in terms of a mesh, just with an efficient amount of points indicating the form, this is perfect. Perfect enough that I can add a bevel modifier to it, alt click sharpen, and we see that there's a few areas of contention. So I mean, bevel's a slightly different auditor whenever it comes to subdivision, but it's its own type of auditor too. So one set of rules for one may not translate effortlessly to the other. And for this area, we're using angle. So if we were to press L inside of bevel to change its limit method to weight, we're able to basically continue on with this. And then really from here, it would just be the process of me filling in surface blanks in order to get the mesh to hold its integrity whenever it comes to the bevel modifier. But that work is a lot less than what we're looking at. So if I were to just control shift sharpen to recalculate the sharps, we can actually get in here and just make sure we don't have any doubles, because I don't know why this area would sharpen, but that's a question for another day. But just like that, within 10 minutes, we were able to kind of recreate the skeleton of what we were going for, just using Meshmachine and Boolean cleanup to really get us a large amount of the way there as far as having our parameters protected and simplified for us to get in and finish the job.